That's Drew.
And that's Mike.
And that's Armen Hammer.
Hey, you nailed
What's
it.
up, Armen?
Hey, guys.
Yes.
First try.
All right, I got an intro about you, Armen. Here we go. Armen Hammer is the man behind the YouTube channel Armen Hammer TV. As a content creator and storyteller focused on sharing his perspectives as a longtime CrossFitter, Armen has gained nearly 30,000 subscribers with well over 6 million views. He is also the host and founder of 3 different podcasts, including the Wadcast podcast, and he's a self-proclaimed fitness maniac and a lover of canines and coffee. Armen, thanks so much for your time today.
That was a great intro. That
Thank you.
Like, I feel like I should save that and use that. That's really good. That's solid.
It's all yours.
I'm excited to be here, guys. This is gonna be a lot of fun.
Drew has this uncanny ability to write like awesome intros every time. I've written a couple and they're never at the caliber of him. So
You crushed it.
Team effort. Thanks, Armen.
Yeah, the team effort is Drew, you writing the intro this time? He's like, yep, I'm on. Got it. So Armen, stoked to have you on. This is super great. We've just spent 15 minutes chatting about everything under the sun. I promise we won't talk about Everest. So I think we should start like growing up. Your channel and kind of your podcast are all about fitness. But what was your fitness journey growing up, and where did that start?
I had very little fitness in my life up until I started doing CrossFit.
Wow.
So as a kid, I was active. I played baseball, but I'm the youngest of 3 brothers. My older brothers, one is 6 years older than me, and the other's 8 years older than me. So there was a bit of a gap. By the time I was entering high school, they were already well into their college, if not leaving college. So when I started doing any sort of athletics, it was just what they were doing, just 6 or 8 years later. So I played baseball. Growing up, I was terrible, not the best baseball player. I played a little bit of like basketball, but that was just like summer league stuff to keep me busy. Mostly during high school and like late junior high, I started running. So they were involved. There's this program. So I'm from LA, and there's this program called Students Run LA, which takes high school students and does like training with them throughout the school year with the goal of running the LA Marathon, which usually was in the spring.
Cool.
And so cool. Yeah, it's a really good program. You know, they give you a pair of shoes. It's a couple early mornings during the week and then one weekend run. And it's a long program built over, 5 or 6 months that builds up your ability to do the marathon, and then you run the marathon. And so, and in the interim, you do plenty of different races. So I spent almost every year, I was a runner. So I ran starting in 7th grade, 8th grade, started doing marathons. All through high school, I ran. I was on track, cross country, and running marathons. And the moment I graduated high school, I stopped being active. I was just not at all doing any physical activity. I went off to college. I started playing way more video games, even though I loved playing video games. I always played video games. I just started playing way more of them and staying up later and later. I just wasn't super healthy. So by the time my sophomore, junior year of college was rolling around, I just felt a little lethargic, just not really where I wanted to be. I knew it was unsustainable. I knew I needed to get active in some way. So I started looking for something to give me a little bit of that feeling in some way. And I never was a gym guy. I actually really disliked exercise. I was not a fan. The reason why I enjoyed running is because it was repetitive. It gave me an opportunity to just kind of shut my brain off or hang out with the people that I was running with. And it gave me an opportunity later in my high school year to be a little bit of a leader. Like I was on student government and I was captain on my senior year. And that speaks nothing, by the way, to my abilities. I was a very, very slow runner. I was not a fast runner at all. So it was really just a seniority thing that gave me the opportunity to be a leader on that team. But It's not like I was competing at any sort of real level. I was just active. And having a few years off of that in the beginning of my university time is just didn't feel good. So I tried a bunch of different things, including indoor rock climbing, yoga, just a whole bunch of different activities, and eventually stumbled into CrossFit. And CrossFit was the first time I'd been in the gym and actually enjoyed doing things in the gym, being active in the sense of actually like lifting weights and running and jumping and doing gymnastics and learning. And it challenged me mentally as much as it did physically. And that's I think why I sort of fell in love with the training methodology.
Yeah, I can totally relate. I was a collegiate swimmer, and after that and kind of growing up, you're always coached more for me. And until I graduated college and tried to go to the gym, I didn't know what to do. Like I lifted weights, for 4 years of college, and then I went to the gym, had no idea, stumbled into CrossFit, and I liked the coaching mentality. I liked the team mentality, had that kind of same experience. One thing that you just said though, 7th grade, you're running a marathon.
Yeah. I mean, if you're willing to be bored long enough, then anyone can finish a marathon. I don't see it as like that huge of a deal. I guess it's a challenge, and it's certainly something that is, for many people, it's a big bucket list thing, being able to finish a marathon. And I think that is admirable for people depending on where they're at. But I really do think that something like that is more of a mental grit issue than anything else. If you're just willing to be bored and suffer a little bit for 5, 6, 7 hours, you can finish a marathon. It's way more challenging if you put some sort of a time cap on it. And again, I was never a fast runner. I want to make that super clear, not a fast runner.
But still, 7th grade completing a marathon, 8th grade, that it doesn't matter. That's like, to me, that's unheard of. I've never met someone who's completed a marathon at that age. So that's
mental grit alone at 13 or 14 years of age like that is pretty noticeable, I'd say.
Yeah. I guess, yes, I will cop to that for sure, because my first marathon, I was 12, so I was always young. That was one of the reasons why I was never big into athletics, is because I was by far the youngest in my class. I graduated high school and I turned 17 right before I graduated.
No way.
So I was always a year or a little over a year younger than everybody else, and so I was smaller than everyone. So playing baseball or any sort of real athletic sport, I couldn't really keep up because I was smaller than everyone. So running was something that is just participatory. And as long as I was willing to put in the work and be there, it was something that I'd be able to participate in and compete in. And so, my first marathon, I was 12 and it didn't go very well. I had a group of people that I wanted to complete the race with. And within the first, I don't know if you guys have ever done these like really big races, but usually it's a big group start. So by the time you actually cross the start line, there's maybe 15 or 20 minutes that has passed by and you're the 40,000th person that has walked across the line. And in that scuffle within the first mile, I lost the people that I was going to be doing the entire race with. We had all our paces, we had everything. I completely lost. And this was 2001, maybe. So 2001, 2002, I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have anything. I was like, well, the only way I find my parents again is by finishing this race. And I just kept going until I finished the race so I could find my mom again. Like that was it. I was like, all right. There's only one place that I can be. And there's also only one place that we're all going to be at the same time. And I was hours behind everybody else, but I eventually got there.
Oh my gosh, dude, that's crazy. 12 years old, like alone. I'm just gonna run the marathon by myself now. That's some serious mental grit for sure.
Yeah, that's a good lesson to learn for an adolescent. Throw the phone away, and the only way you're gonna see anybody again is by completing this marathon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so you talked a little bit about college. You graduate high school, you head over to UC Irvine, and you're studying and playing some video games. You end up graduating, right? And you major in psychology.
Yeah. So my university experience is probably a little strange. I I was one of those students that was like near the top of my class, got into all the schools that I wanted to get into, and then got all my acceptances rescinded because I dropped the ball my last semester in high school. And I will not take full credit for that. I think it was equivalently a clerical error on the part of my physics teacher, who essentially waited. I don't know. I can't believe I still remember the details of this, but he weighted a quiz that we took equivalent to like the final. And I wasn't participating in class at all. So I just didn't do anything. I didn't take any of the quizzes. I barely did my homework. But like, I knew that if I could just ace the finals, I'd be fine. So that's what I did. And It turned out that it was, based on the way that the scoring worked, or the weighting of the different portions of the class worked, and the fact that we didn't have very many quizzes that semester. This one quiz was weighted 40% of our grade, and I didn't even take it. So it didn't matter what I did in the rest of the class. I was doomed to fail to begin with. And he even admitted, by the way, that this happened. He was like, yeah, you passed. Of course you passed. You like passed the final. You're fine. But the school refused to change my grade, and I had all my acceptances rescinded. So I actually ended up going to 3 different schools before I graduated. I spent a year at UC Merced in Central California. It was like the second year they had been open. And then I spent a year or a year and a half at Santa Monica College to get my transfer credits. And then I finally ended up at UC Irvine to graduate. And I am not ungrateful. I'm actually quite happy with how my university journey went. It was very weird. I didn't get to have the experience that I expected to, because I was planning on going to the same school as a bunch of my friends from high school. We were going to go to UC San Diego. And eventually what ended up happening was I decided to go to UC Irvine as opposed to UC San Diego, even though my transfers were accepted to both. I just decided that Irvine was going to be the right place for me. And I'm really happy that I went. I studied cognitive behavior and cog sci. I got a bachelor's in science in cog sci, and I got a minor in philosophy. And I really, really enjoyed the time that I had there. It was great. It was really cool.
Oh, that's a journey, man. That's a serious journey. That's like the movie Orange. Is that Orange County, where the kid they mix the transcripts? It's like Shane Brainerd and someone else, and he's like, "Set the wrong transcript." That's crazy though. 40% for like a quiz is that sounds like a clerical error.
And that's what it was. And my professor, my teacher in senior year, and it wasn't even a required course. I elected to take this like advanced physics or it was advanced calculus, because I knew that, I could just skip over this mathematics for my, general credits when it came to actually getting to the university. But, he basically admitted, he's like, oh yeah, here's the mistake. Here's the mistake I made. I only gave you guys one quiz, and I weighted quizzes, 40% of the grade. Like, this shouldn't have happened. And the school just was not having any of it. They wouldn't help out. They wouldn't change it. They just basically told me, like, they tried to make me feel bad about it. They were like, you're lucky we're even letting you walk with your graduating class. And I was like, you're lucky I'm not suing you right now. I'm like, what are you talking about? Everyone is on my side on this. Like, why are you not seeing how this works? But whatever. It is what it is. I went to a really small high school. It was like a college prep school, and I thought that there would be a little bit more understanding for things like that, but whatever.
I think it makes sense though, because a college would do the same thing. If the professor logged in the beginning that it was 40% and you just didn't show up to class, it's kind of a little lesson into what's going on. If it was an AP class, you go to college. I was a terrible student. Drew was a great student. But
well, I have a story similar to yours. Because I was thinking, I have a story just like that. I remember I hold on to those things. There's little things that just alter the rest of the course of your life. Mine wasn't that dramatic, but I once did a final, and it was on our laptops, and we were supposed to write all of our responses on the web page and give answers in a text box on that same web page. Well, I thought, I think better with a clear Word document. I think better with just a blank slate. I'm going to write my answers in that Word document and then just copy and paste them over. To them, that was suspicious because they thought, oh, well, maybe you wrote all of your answers beforehand. We'll give you a 50% on the final and you can take this B- in the class. I was like, all right. At that point, I had flown home already for Christmas break. And I was like, I'm not going to fly back to Orlando to come meet with the academic council or whatever over this final quiz. I just take it and move on. But it's frustrating. Yeah. Those things stick with you. And when you're like, I know I'm right.
You know, the weird thing is, and the only reason why I remember this is because I was very recently going through my my email, and I found this old email that I'd sent in college. So to graduate from UC Irvine, and I stuck around an extra, so I could have walked in June. I decided to walk in December, and I stuck around that extra semester because I wanted to finish my minor in philosophy. By the time I was a senior, I was like, I'm not going to do anything with this cognitive science thing. You know, this is interesting. Psychology is very interesting to me, but I don't want to be a therapist. I don't want to be involved in this field. Let's see what the next thing is. And I had decided at that point to pursue academics. I was going to be a philosopher. That was going to be my thing. Like, I was going to be the philosophy guy. And so I decided to take a bunch of different philosophy courses over the summer at UCLA. And I took these philosophy courses and I was like, man, I'm 2 classes away from finishing a minor. I'll stick around another semester and finish this off. And the school at UC Irvine, the school within which philosophy was underneath their umbrella, they wouldn't recognize the UCLA classes I took. And apparently their whole thing was it was a residency issue because I hadn't met a certain limit of a bare limit of credits for the minor done at UC Irvine. And I was like, I found this email that I sent, this like 2,000 word email, basically arguing how stupid of a decision this is to deny me my minor because of a bureaucratic rule that makes no sense. Like, I took this class at UCLA, which is a better, higher ranking philosophy program than UC Irvine's, and you wouldn't recognize the credits. And I made this like really long argument, and I got a 1-sentence response back that said, we'll let you have your minor. Congratulations. I was like, what is this all it took? Like, you just wanted someone to fight you? Like, I don't understand why all these different, and I mean, the administrative aspect of schooling, I think has become a real hurdle for a lot of people to deal with in their journeys. And I think it turns people off that, like, oh, well, if this is going to be what it takes to get an education, then why am I even trying to put more effort into it?
I don't disagree with that at all.
I think there is a valuable lesson in standing up for yourself in a sense and pushing your case. I found that to be true with navigating the sort of bureaucratic idea of college. I used to kind of push my way into classes sometimes and encourage other people to do it too. But I found that sort of works too if you just give a little bit of pushback. And I found it in like retail settings too. Like sometimes you just, if you go that extra step and you take their no response and you just say, well, I'm going to push a little bit more, I'm going to give you an idea back, they're generally pretty receptive, I've found. I don't know.
Yeah, if there's one thing I think I would qualify as, it's probably stubborn. Like, I think stubborn would probably be one way of describing the way I've dealt with a lot of things over the past 10, 15 years.
Yeah, starting with a marathon to go see your parents. That's pretty stubborn, man.
Mental fortitude from the 7th grade.
Yeah.
It pays off. It does.
Yeah, seriously. All right, so let's keep rolling. So graduate college, what's next for you?
Yeah, so like I said, I was planning on going into further into academics, and I'd taken my graduate exams, and I'd scored really, really well, and essentially had, if I wanted it, a free ride wherever to study philosophy for a doctorate program. And I was planning on studying epistemology. My entire existence was going to be focused on what is knowledge and how do we know we have it. Cool. That was going to be like everything that I wanted to do. And then I I had sort of this like brush up with the administration at the school, and I was like, man, I think I can put this off for a year or two and just try and figure out something else. I don't see if there's any real reason for me to jump right back into academics, especially if this is what it's going to be like, trying to, navigate these waters. And at the same time, as I was graduating in December of 2010, my oldest brother, who had started CrossFitting just a few months before I did, and he introduced me to it, he was pretty over his work at the time, and he wanted something new. He wanted something himself. And our entire family has been really entrepreneurial. And so he loved CrossFit and decided to open a CrossFit gym. And I said, if you need somebody, I'm absolutely available. And from that point on, we were basically partners in this CrossFit gym. So from, right after I graduated college, it was 10 weeks, maybe 12 weeks until we opened our doors. I mean, we were on it. We were absolutely on it.
Wow. And so you went from starting CrossFit in 2008 in college to get back into the fitness world.
Yep.
And 2 years later, you're an affiliate owner.
Yes.
Wow.
So again, my path here is a strange one, and I would not trade it for the world, because I was a member at, I would say, two of the best CrossFit affiliates in the world at that point. The one of them was CrossFit Los Angeles, which was just in Santa Monica, California. It was one of the first affiliates, one of like the first 10 or 12 affiliates in the world. The owner was a guy named Andy Petronic. He was a former Marine. He was an endurance athlete. He came from this really hard, badass background, but was like a really affable, exciting, funny, goofy guy. And yet, he was able to like really share this love he had for CrossFit with a big group of people. And so I learned a lot about what it meant to practice this methodology through him. But, his gym was in Santa Monica. He wasn't, he obviously had his own sort of flavor of CrossFit because he was, a smaller guy. He was way more into like the gymnastic stuff and the endurance stuff. And I wanted to be strong like an ox. So I found another gym, a gym in Costa Mesa called CrossFit Balboa. There's an island there, Balboa Island. So it's like right off the island, CrossFit Balboa, which was owned by a former NFL lineman named John Wellborn. And John was, 6'5", 330, and could do like strict muscle ups. Like he's a freak of nature. Yeah. And so I walked into his gym and I was like, hey, John, listen, I can only snatch 130 pounds, maybe 135 on a good day. I'm terrible at anything heavy. I really want to get strong. How do I do that? And I was lucky because UC Irvine is 10 minutes away from CrossFit Balboa. And so I would commute actually from LA to Santa Monica to Irvine to CrossFit Balboa back to LA almost every day. So I'd spend any time I wasn't either driving or at school, I was at one of those two facilities. And the amount of time that I spent essentially training under their tutelage and sort of being an intern / assistant coach / developing my own understanding. And I have the type of personality where if I am bit by the bug by something, I'm going to go 100% of the way in. Like I will watch every YouTube video. I will read every article. I will know everything about this thing. Like within a week, it will be a consuming obsession with me. And so I did that for 2 years with CrossFit. So by the time we opened our gym, I had probably had more coaching experience than, most people who were opening gyms to begin with. And it was the actual act of coaching CrossFit. So I wasn't coming at it from a different perspective. I was coming at it from, being sort of taught within the system. And yeah, I mean, it's a very quick turnaround, but I spent that time, like school was never really challenging to me. I spent almost all my time and energy being the best at learning how to be a CrossFit coach.
And that makes total sense. So from your next step, right, 2011 is when you started posting content regarding CrossFit, and you started with the naked. Oh man, I wrote it down. The Naked CrossFitter blog.
That's right.
Right. And so first off, we got to get to the name, but right. And then, so that makes sense, right? You've done all this research. You're now an affiliate owner, and you want to share that with people?
Yeah. So the idea behind the blog was we had a coach who had owned an affiliate in South Dakota, and he was very consistently posting a personal blog every week. Now, we had our gym blog where 5 days a week we would write out the workout. We would give people nutrition tips and motivation and why we're doing certain things and why we don't do other things, just sort of explaining what's going on at the gym.
And that's because the major platforms weren't in existence, so you had to use a blog.
Right. You had to use a blog. Like your gym's website was something that your members would check every single day because it gave them vital information about what they were doing. Because at that point, still, no one really knew what CrossFit was. These days, people think they know what CrossFit is. I mean, they don't, but they think they know based off of their experience of it. But back then it was like, what are you doing? Why are you carrying that very heavy looking ball around? Or, what do you mean you want me to just run around the block and then squat a bunch of times for the next 20 minutes? And so there was nothing there. So we had to really flesh out that information for our members in our community. And so this coach, he encouraged me, he said, hey, you know what? You should start publishing your own stuff. Like you should start making it a consistent goal to write every single week and just publish it. It doesn't matter if people are going to read it. It doesn't matter if it's what it's necessarily about. Just start publishing about it. And so I thought, we as CrossFitters do a lot of really silly things, like, men rip their shirts off the moment they get any sort of sweaty, like the warm up starts and people are getting half naked, chalk up before we do push-ups, like really silly things that are easy to make fun of. And so I started this kind of tongue-in-cheek blog called The Naked CrossFitter. And the idea behind The Naked CrossFitter was, do you guys remember the Naked Chef, Jamie Oliver, I think his name.
Oh yeah.
Jamie Oliver. So he had a show called The Naked Chef, and The Naked Chef was just like very simplified, pared down cooking. It was taking really tough, elegant recipes and turning them into more simplified, accessible stuff. And that was how I approached so much of what I did as a coach. And I tried to really simplify complex ideas like how does your body snatch and that sort of thing. And so I thought, this is perfect. Naked CrossFitter is going to be it. We're going to go from here.
Wow. That's a super interesting start and a great, the name now makes much more sense than just out of nowhere. I was like, oh, that's an interesting start. So
and
then
I want to jump in as an outsider too, having not had any experience whatsoever with CrossFit. What was it that made you really connect with it? It seems like, from an outsider's perspective, it sort of seems like pretty intense weightlifting to me, but it's got such a community aspect to it. And you mentioned it being quite mentally stimulating and challenging. It's obviously very physically challenging. I'm curious what it was personally with you, and Mike, I'm sure you could answer this too, but what's the connection? What sparked that fire? What sparked that obsession for you?
Yeah, I think there's a few aspects to that. The suffering aspect, like the physical suffering aspect, is a big part of it for sure. And it sounds really strange to say that, but when you look at things that build strong communities, shared suffering is one of the keystones to building a strong community. It's a very easy way of breaking down any barriers between people. When you're next to somebody and after 20 minutes you're both destroyed from what you just did, there isn't really anything but common ground at that point. There's nothing but common ground. And so it doesn't matter. I've met so many people in my gym that I never would have expected to even interact with. And when I did interact with them, they were completely different than what I would have thought, because we're in Santa Monica. So we're talking, some of the biggest actors and directors and, media people in the world were just working out right next to me. I had no idea who they were because they were so down to earth and we were all suffering together. And then they would leave and we would become friends on Facebook. And I'd be like, oh, you're the head of Revolution Studios. That's crazy. What are you doing here? It just makes no sense, So that's part of it. That sort of shared suffering is part of it. I think another part of it, the mentally stimulating portion of it, is that, I came at this from a philosophy background, from an epistemology background, and epistemology, so much of it is this logical arguments for how do you know something? What is a sufficient and necessary definition? Like, what are those conditions for knowledge? And so I had this mindset of, I need to be able to logically explain and argue in favor of the things that I'm doing. It makes complete sense to me that I should have knowledge of why things work the way they do. And when I looked at the methodology of CrossFit, the underpinning of CrossFit is this idea of, fitness as measured by work capacity. It's how fast can you do this thing, or how much load can you move in a short period of time? And your body is the engine that moves it. It made sense to me from a philosophical point of view of, okay, well, I'm literally measuring scientifically, like if I run a mile in 10 minutes today and a month from now I run a mile in 8 minutes, I am 2 minutes faster. That is a very easy thing to say. And yet nobody in like the fitness world was measuring things that way. You couldn't say I'm 2 minutes more body built, like it doesn't make any sense. And so this idea of a functional, applicable fitness that is also measurable, it spoke to me in a lot of different levels, from like the philosophy level to the video game level of like, all right, let's work on our stats. We're going to get our agility up. We're going to get our strength up. We're going to get our, intelligence up. And so it really did light a fire inside of me that to this day is still burning very, very brightly.
That's really cool that you mentioned that. Mike and I were having a conversation about something that I picked up in your first video on your current channel on Armen Hammer TV. And in that channel, or in that video, excuse me, you're sort of introducing the channel, but you mentioned a phrase that you say constantly, which is chop wood and carry water. And you explain that as sort of embracing the process of operating on a micro level with things, which to me is that sort of self-awareness of measuring yourself in those incremental steps that, like you said, if I can run 10 minutes now and however much time from today, I can run it 2 minutes faster. That's achieving things step by step, incrementally at that micro level. It's a cool mindset. It's something I was talking with my volleyball team yesterday, because we were talking about setting goals and they immediately want to go to that macro level. Well, we want to win. Okay. Well, what does that mean? How do you do that? Well, we do that by being better together as a team. Okay. Well, what does that mean? Let's get specific. Well, that means bumping 3 times before we get it over the net each time. All right. That's measurable. You can measure that in real time in the game. You can analyze yourself in real time. Are we getting 3 hits before we hit it over? Am I doing this little thing each and every day to meet those macro goals? Yeah, I could go on all day about that mindset. I found it with yoga, personally myself, with even breaking things down just to a single breath. Like you can really play mind games with yourself, breaking things down to that micro level and thinking about how the micro and the macro can work in synchronicity. I think it's pretty cool to think about.
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of process-based like conceptualization, thinking things about thinking my work, my creativity, my daily habits or whatever as part of a process, not necessarily focus so much on the result. The result of, like you said, oh, everyone wants to win the championship. Well, it's like, what does that mean? Only one team can win the championship. And if you're basing your entire sense of success or failure over whether that one thing happens, guess what? 99% of people are going to be a failure. Well, that can't be accurate. That can't be the way it works. So what is the way of actually measuring your success? Well, if you take it out of the hands of something that could be, luck based, or, maybe you're just literally not good enough to beat this other team and there's no way to make up that gap. Well, then, you're doomed to be a failure. Of course not. You just have to find a way to frame it so that your success, your win, your process becomes something completely different. You almost like change the rules of the game to make sure that you're setting yourself up to win. And I think chop wood, carry water is something that, every single day. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. It's the process. That is how you do it. You have to do the thing, and you do the thing every day.
And you're still living by that today.
Yes. To some extent or another. Yeah. I mean, there's moments. There's definitely,
of course,
there are lulls, but yeah. I mean, to some extent or another, every single day, chop wood, carry water.
Yeah. I kind of understand, or I'm starting to understand the mental aspect of CrossFit. At least I get that, especially with having a community around to share that suffering, share that progress with. That's got to be awesome. That's cool.
And there's no questions about what you're doing. Like when you go to the gym, like I would never know what to do. I'd be like, okay, today I'm gonna, I don't know, do some chest things. I don't know what to do. Maybe do this or that. And then, oh, I like deadlifting. I'm gonna deadlift. But when you go to CrossFit, it's like every day is different. There's benchmark classes that you're gonna do, or benchmark kind of, they call them the girls, and there's hard workouts that are all based on heroes. So it's tied together. And every day you go and you show up and you go, I personally would never look at the workout. Just show up. That's what I'm going to do. There's no questions about what's going to happen. And you just get it done, and you get it done, and you suffer with everyone else in there. It's just like a team. That was my draw.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way. I mean, the idea, I train mostly out of my gym, my garage now, because I just happen to have collected so much equipment over the past 10 or 12 years.
Yeah.
But the idea of letting go of some of that control of, okay, this is the workout I'm going to do today. Like, no, man, it's just, there's a lot of positivity and joy to be had of just showing up to a gym, trusting the coaches and the owners there, and having a good time with people around you.
Yeah. Yeah. I've now made the opposite to what you're on. Is now I've started running every day. And I miss CrossFit, but I was 6 months. There's now he's 7 months old. It's hard to find an hour working full time and going away. So hopefully soon can get back in the gym. So now you start the wadcast, and the wadcast opens your base, right? Because the Naked CrossFitter blog, I'm going to guess, was a lot smaller in the sense, but grew. But that gets you into the community. You're now known as a blogger in the CrossFit community. Now you're the podcast guy of the CrossFit community, which gets you a lot more of growth.
Yeah.
And just for our subscriber, or for our listeners who are not into CrossFit, CrossFit is about 13,000 affiliates worldwide. And if you average, what does the average affiliate have? Maybe 200, 100 members?
Yeah, somewhere between 150 and 200, I'd say. So
if we do that, you've got pretty much all the subscriber base on the entire CrossFit community almost is on your channel. So you're at a, couple 100,000 people maybe who have been touched or are really present in the community, is probably around 50 to 75,000.
Yeah. Yeah. The podcast, was not my idea. I'd never thought about doing something like that, but I got a call from a friend of mine who got, he's now a friend of mine, but I got a call from this guy I'd never met before. His name is Eddie Ift. He's a comedian. And he was like, hey, man, this CrossFit thing is pretty cool. I've been doing it for a long time. We have a bunch of mutual friends. I got your number from a friend of yours. We should do a podcast. I have a podcast that's about comedy. We should do a podcast that's about CrossFit. And I'm a kid at this point. I mean, I was probably 22, maybe. I was like, you know what? Sure. I feel like I've been alive for 3 years, basically. I am a 3-year-old as far as I'm concerned. And I would love to do this thing that you're calling a podcast. I don't know what this is, but this sounds fun. And it grew from there. I mean, my sort of start was, again, really lucky. I was very fortuitous. Eddie is a professional when it comes to entertainment. His his comedy podcast was with him and Jim Jeffries. So I would like
Wow,
come, I would
cool.
go, yeah, I'd go over to their place and I would be there for their podcast recording, which was like raunchy and crazy and hilarious. I would learn about, again, just really deep dive, like who's the sound engineer? What are you doing right now? How does this work? What is the equipment you're using? Send me a list. I want to know exactly what this is. Why are you using this versus that? And so I learned a lot about the process through that experience of both sort of sitting there and seeing them record their podcast and then being a part of my own podcast with Eddie. And that was a that was a really interesting turn of luck, I think.
That's awesome. And so you're doing the podcast there, and you're still in LA, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Yep.
And so when was it the choice that you're going to go from the medium of podcasting to the medium of YouTube? And what was that decision like? Why did you grow into YouTube?
Yeah. Okay. So the podcast grew and we had a lot of success. We weren't like, none of us, so there ended up being 3 of us on the show. We weren't professional podcasters. We all had work outside of it, but the podcast was doing really, really well. And through the podcast, I was recruited by this company here in Austin called Flow Sports. And Flow Sports is like, they basically do very deep dive vertical coverage of sports that don't get that type of love. So they started with things like track and field and wrestling, and now they've expanded into dozens of other sports from, dirt bike racing to grappling to
Cool.
soccer. It's everything. And so they hired me as the senior editor for their fitness vertical. It was called Flow Elite. It covered CrossFit, strongman, weightlifting, powerlifting, strength sports, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was thrust from sort of this professional gym owner, professional coach, and side hustle is making content, mostly audio content, to the exact opposite happened. I was professionally a journalist, like a sports journalist and editor, and my job was to make the best content about the juiciest stories and cover the sport as best as I could and get to know all the athletes and get to know all the event organizers and coaches, and be a part of the organization. And so for 3 years, I moved to Austin in 2015, left the gym. And for 3 years, that's exactly what I did. I became, the best content engine that I possibly could have. My time with Flow wrapped up because they made a bunch of bad bets and they had downsize. So myself and like 60 other people lost our jobs at the same time. And so I was kind of left in this limbo, and I had seen the writing on the wall. Like it just wasn't feeling right. I could see sort of the decision-making wasn't going the direction they wanted it to. And I sort of knew that there was a potential that I was going to lose my job. And so in the last maybe 4 months, I had really focused my attention while I was there into creating as best of a YouTube channel for them as I possibly could. And the result of that was I essentially tried to create a vlog. So I started doing these themed vlogs. At first it was like seasonal. So I would do maybe 5 or 6 weeks, and it would be, the first one was like Armen fights a bear. And I started doing jujitsu, and I covered my training around jujitsu, and I eventually went and did a jujitsu tournament, and it was like this, like 3 months long. And then there was Armen participates in the Open, and the Open is like this big online CrossFit competition. And I completely did not want to say I compete in the Open. I just am participating in the Open. And so I documented my journey participating in the Open and what that means to me as someone who's done it for the past 10 or 11 years. And so, I had this thing going on. And then the last 2 months before I lost my job, I was doing a daily vlog on that YouTube channel. And I knew in a way that whatever my next step was going to be influenced by the content that I made near the end of my job at Flow Elite. Whether that meant joining another company and doing media for them, or that meant doing my own thing, it would have to be sort of affected by or influenced by or informed by what I was doing those last few months. And eventually, after going through a bunch of different ideas and trying to figure out exactly what I was going to do, I decided on, roll the dice on myself, start my own YouTube channel. There are people out there who are doing it, and they're doing it way, way worse and with way less sort of knowledge, technical knowledge, as well as connections than I have. And I just thought, yeah, I could do this. I think I can do this. And for a couple months, it was like hit and miss. And then it just kind of got crazy after a little while. After a few months, it got really crazy. And I happened to be the perfect person at the perfect time, and capitalized on some like crazy things going on at CrossFit.
Well, I feel like you also had a heck of a lot of experience leading up to that, knowing the industry, knowing how to do YouTube, knowing how to grow a subscriber base, having successfully been able to talk on air for, periods of time. You had a skill base, but I guess when the stars aligned, you were the right person for it.
Yeah, I mean, it goes kind of back to that chop wood, carry water, right? It kind of goes back to that idea of being process oriented. I never, until maybe even like a year and a half into having my YouTube channel, I had not even thought to set longer term, subscriber or page view or monetary revenue goals. 100% it was, what is the best content I can put out today, tomorrow, the day after? And then how do I continue doing that every day? And so, the first couple months, it was very much experimenting. I was doing, recipe, I was doing different, rating different types of like paleo pancakes. And also, here's my workout. Check it out. This is my exercise. And also, here's what I think about what's going on in this thing. And you're right. The process of understanding, all right, here's how you craft a thumbnail. Here's how you craft a title. Here's how you craft a beginning, middle, and end to your vlog. Here's how long you want it to be. Here's what analytics you look at to see where you can improve. Like, if people are only watching 90 seconds of your video, then why publish a 13-minute video? You got to make it tighter. You got to make it better. Earn another 7 minutes of their eyes. So there's a lot of that went into it. And when after the CrossFit Games in 2018, Greg Glassman decided to like get rid of regionals and completely reshape the corporate structure at CrossFit and fire 100 people off the media team. I was there, ready, connected, and able to create the content that sort of informed the community about why and how things were going on.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Drew.
Yeah, and I'm curious too how your background in psychology and epistemology affected your content creation. You spoke a little bit before about how it affected your coaching and wanting to break things down to that sort of naked, bare bones simplification type of style. How did that affect your content creation, especially in the sense that it sounded like you were sort of learning things on the fly too, like how to craft a catchy thumbnail or how to keep somebody's attention for more than a few minutes?
Yeah. I think in a way, so much of what I wanted to do when I was thinking about going to graduate school, going to get my doctorate in philosophy, so much of what I wanted to do was teach. My joy came from communicating these like very complex and almost life-changing ideas about knowledge or fitness or whatever, and getting people to come along that journey with me, to like go from zero to, oh, I get it now. And that process to me is incredibly fulfilling. That means a lot to me, to be able to communicate and teach and to be a part of that for somebody. And my content has become an avenue for me to do that. And so when I say that, I'm very, very particularly skilled in this arena, there is not anybody on the face of the planet that knows CrossFit better than I do and can communicate its intricacies as like a historical event to people better than I can. And so when, something happens, let's say like the Greg Glassman thing, when he shows up and he fires 100 people off the media team and he cancels part of the CrossFit Games season and he completely flips everything on its head, a lot of people see that and they think, what the hell just happened? How did this just occur? Where did he even come from? And for me, it's the logical conclusion to 100 things that I've seen and heard him do over the past 10 years. So I can bring that context and teach people and like inform people about that. And the way that I communicate it to my audience and to the community is to tell them, hey guys, my role here is to move the conversation forward in a positive way. There's a lot that's happening. It's very easy to miss important and interesting details. That is literally what I am here for. I will tell you what is important and interesting about the news cycle that you just heard and why it either one, matters way more than you think it might, or B, the context that makes it really that not that important. And so, that's been my role. I've kind of taken this role of informing the community through like editorialized content in order for them to be better prepared to have these conversations. And it's gotten a lot of momentum. I think overall I've been able to positively affect the CrossFit community, over the past couple of years, which I'm really proud of.
And the community is in need of it too.
Yes, that is very true.
Definitely some disarray. So I hit the right time and you're the right guy. I think it makes sense to do that now. So you're rolling into this, you're doing kind of the editorial side, you're having a little bit of vlogging and bringing people into your life. But at the same time, right, you've been doing CrossFit since 2008. 2018 is kind of the entry into this realm. And so now you're in 10 years. 2018, 2019, 2020, you're now on a friend basis with the people from 2008 that you're watching be the stars in the sport. How is it's got to be so cool for us, right? Like we're like emailing YouTubers and then we get on a call with someone like you that, we've seen. I mean, I'm talking out of turn. I've seen, right? And now we're like chatting and friends and it's got to be so much different from someone who you probably were watching the numbers, watching Matt Frazier kind of climb this ladder, come out of nowhere, watching Tia Claire Toomey come out of it, and then you are posting a video where I didn't realize this. I was watching one on your channel today. I thought it was like video footage from their gym, and then I'm listening. I'm like, that's you. So you're in the gym, hanging out with them, videoing them do a workout. What is that like?
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. The role that I have and the things that I get to do and the people I get to interact with is like, I wouldn't trade it for anything. It really is very cool. And, I remember the only time I've really been starstruck meeting a CrossFit Games athlete was actually in 2015. I met Miko Salo for the first time, and Miko is like my hero. I don't know if you can see, there's a poster of him right there.
Oh, cool.
That is Miko Salo. Miko's Finnish. He won the CrossFit Games in 2009. He came out of nowhere. He has one of my favorite, just like the idea that he embodies is this Finnish concept called sisu, which is stoic suffering, basically, like suffer in silence. It's chop wood, carry water, but Finnish, It's so good. It's so good. And he's just such a crazy inspiration to like my understanding of what the human body is capable of. And I got to meet him in 2015, and I have the photo on my phone. I'm like giggling like a schoolgirl eating NSYNC. It's so crazy. It's the only time I've really ever been starstruck, because part of meeting athletes like Matt Fraser and Tia Claire Toomey is that, if I'm reaching out to them, it's either cold And the assumption is they've never heard of me, and I need to earn their ability to trust me. I need to earn their trust. Or it's through someone else, and I need to honor that arrangement. I need to honor with my integrity someone else's word. And so when that occurs, my move is to be, it's about responsibility. It's about the responsibility that I have to myself, to my community, to them and their time, and making sure that I don't waste that. And we have a lot of fun. I can count the negative interactions that I've had with people in the CrossFit space, like on one hand. And most of it was well-deserved. Most of it was like, I kind of earned that. All right, I earned that. I think I know what I did to earn that. But to be fair, I'm very serious about, I take what I do very professionally. I take what they do very professionally, and we have a really good time. But the undercurrent of all of that is, mutual respect and an understanding that I want the best for them, because the best for them is the best for me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, it makes total sense. And you could feel that 100% in your video. It came through very clearly. It's just, I'm jealous. It's got to be so cool, right?
Yeah, it feels good because I get a chance to have these long, intimate conversations, sometimes on camera, sometimes not, sometimes recorded, sometimes not. But I get to have these really long, intimate conversations with people who are on the cutting edge of what we do. And getting to get into their headspace and potentially share some of that with people is very, very cool. It's very cool.
Was that in Cookeville?
Yeah. I mean, that was, I was in Cookeville earlier this year for the Mayhem event. It was one of the sanctionals that happened before everything got shut down. And I spent like 3 days with Rich's event and hanging out with Rich. And I spent a full day with Matt and Tia. And it was the second time I'd been in Cookeville, but it was the first time that I'd actually spent time with Matt and Tia together. And it was really, really cool. It was this very interesting insight into the people who are most driven and the best in the world at what they do. And I feel like I learned a lot personally from interactions like that. And I think I was able to communicate some of what I picked up on in those interactions and some of what I learned from it, even without necessarily doing those like longer drawn out. Even though we did a podcast, I think I was still able to get some of that really gritty, juicy content in there, other pieces.
Well, I mean, I was trying to explain it to Drew earlier today. And I was like, yeah, dude, he was in Cookeville and he was hanging out with Rich, and then he was hanging out with Matt and Tia. And he's like, I have no idea what you're saying. So I was like, it's like you go over to Michael Jordan's house and you're just hanging out. And then Kobe walks in, and then you're like, you know what? I'm going to go hang out with him. And like, it's something you can't even understand. I mean, it's cool. I mean, and it's all well-deserved for you, man. You really have like built an audience over time, and hearing your story has opened up that whole process. Like, I understand it completely of why you are where you are and why your channel's grown so much and why it's going to continue to grow. It makes total sense and all well-deserved.
Thank you. So, I appreciate hearing that.
Yeah. I admire the mindset I've picked up on. It's very cool. Especially, I keep thinking back to your story about the mix up with your high school and with your college. And, it's so easy for people to get into that victim mentality and say, well, the whole course of my life was thrown off just because of that one guy or that one counselor or that one clerical mistake. But that seems to have never even crossed your mind. And I admire that a whole lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, the chop wood, carry water, that's going to stick with me in that phrasing for sure. I told Mike, I think of it as pretty equivalent to that saying that a journey of 1,000 steps or a journey of 1,000 miles, begins with a single step. And it's going to be a single step the whole way along.
Yeah.
And I think the coolest thing still is that your mentality towards teaching, and it's about sharing a joy and sharing a passion. That's very cool. That's going to be the standout from this podcast for me.
I feel very lucky.
Sharing joy.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. That does mean a lot to me, especially considering you are a teacher. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
I know.
I think in a way you get
Well,
that.
yeah, that's why I picked up on it, because as soon as you started talking about sharing that journey to that place where you find that joy, it's like, yes, that's exactly why I do what I do. That's exactly why I want to turn people on to these things that have changed my life. And you know that it can affect other people too. And you want to be that sort of catalyst, that guide along the way to share in that journey, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great feeling. It's a great responsibility. And I definitely would not have it any other way.
Well, man, it was an absolute pleasure. There's so much more to the story that we didn't even get to. And I will say next time, because I definitely want to get back together and learn more about like how the creative process and what you think about and all those kind of things. And let's do it in Austin. And let's get Drew to do CrossFit, because that would be awesome.
100%. Let's
And
do it.
understand the mentality. So, man, thank you
guys
so
are
much.
coming climbing with me then, and we're definitely going to Waco to that wave pool also.
Yes, yeah. We're all gonna go to the wave pool. That's
I'm in.
100% happening. Yeah. So, man, I appreciate it. We're gonna link all of his information in the bio. And then yeah, is there? Oh, dude, we didn't even get to talk about Sneaky Fit and the future of the channel and where you're gonna grow yourself. But let's talk about that for a second. Actually, we're not wrapping up yet.
You know, I'll give you the short answer. The short answer is I'm still singularly driven to move the conversation forward in a positive way. As long as I'm still able to do that, as long as I can still achieve that goal and my content helps do that and helps people, you know, the way I frame it for a lot of people who don't necessarily understand what I mean by that, the practical end goal of that is every gym across the world, all the CrossFitters are having these conversations. They're talking about these topics. I can help inform them, and they don't even need to tell anybody that they heard it from me, but they can inform their conversation and have a better conversation with the information that I give them. And I think as long as I'm able to move the conversation forward, as long as I'm able to contribute to this, I'm going to continue doing that. And I think that my channel is still the single best way for me to keep doing that. So I'm going to keep doing it.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And like now, so you've also started your own kind of fitness motivation, which is called Sneaky Fit, right?
Yeah.
And I love the name too, because there's at every CrossFit gym, there's a Sneaky Fit guy, you know, like that. This guy, look at him, and then he beats the crap out of you in the workout, and you're like, what the heck? And I love the name. I don't know if that's what it means, but I think it's cool to you're creating you have your community, but you're creating another sense of community, because now you might not be an affiliate owner, but you're creating your own affiliate in what we're seeing as maybe the next generation of where the affiliate goes, is like this online kind of community gathering. I don't know if that's what it is, but
yeah, the Sneaky Fit thing originally started as kind of like a self-deprecating way of describing, like, yeah, I may not look like I can beat you at these workouts, but I'm going to beat you at every one of these workouts. Like you're going to lose at everything. And now I don't beat everyone at everything. I just suffer alone. But the Sneaky Fit concept is what you described. It's this idea that, you know, I have a lot of experience. I can strategize workouts better than almost anybody else can, because I understand what my strengths and weaknesses are. And I can also very quickly assess other people's strengths and weaknesses and come up with strategies to complement those. And so, you know, the idea behind Sneaky Fit is I may not be, you know, Rich Froning or Matt Fraser, but I absolutely can come up with a winning strategy. And, you know, again, talking about that, like, shift the perspective. It might not be about having the best score in the world at something. You know, what counts as success? And it's like, well, if I can maximize my output, how do I maximize my output? If suddenly winning isn't beating everyone, but winning is maximizing my output, then my entire mindset has to be, okay, how do I maximize my output? And I think the concept of Sneaky Fit is those types of people. It's the people who are like kind of flying under the radar and then show up and just bomb everybody else in the class or in the workout or in the competition, because they can, you know, figure something out about things that other people can't. And I mean, people see it and they immediately get it. And I love that about Sneaky Fit. I love that about Sneaky Fit.
And I can give a personal testimony to the true knowledge of the workouts that you have, because I think what got me to your channel was last year when I was in Seattle, I was doing the 2019 Open, or was it? I don't even know what year they considered it. It was like the weird one in the fall. So I was doing the Open, and I don't know what workout got me there. Maybe the second one. And I looked at it and I was like, I have no idea what to do on this. Like, what do you do? And you had posted a video of like a strategy of talking about each one of them. And I can tell you I did it twice. And I did it wrong the first time. And then I did it what you said. And it worked out so much better for me in a pain scale.
That's the big like Sneaky Fit like content has been strategies for open workouts. And I think a lot of people were at first kind of laughed at some of the strategies that I suggested. I think there was one workout a while back that was like toes to bar and double unders and an ascending ladder of cleans, like the weight on the cleans would increase. And I was like, I'm going to do every single one of these toes to bar one at a time. And everyone around me was like, what are you talking about? You got to do 5s. You got to do a big set of 15 to start off with and then small after. I was like, no. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to do one at a time. And everyone thought I was crazy. And then I beat everybody that I knew. I put up like best score in like 3 gyms in Austin or whatever, that we were all like getting together and competing. And they were like, what just happened? I was like, you just have to, it sounds crazy, but after tens of thousands of reps and 10,000 workouts, you kind of have an idea of like, all right, well, within this time frame, I can do X, Y, and Z. But if I go way too hard, it's going to affect what happens, the next minute. And that is the crux of the workout. So how do I maximize that of the workout? And I think I really love doing that. Like I really love doing that when it comes to workouts.
Yeah, I'd love to hear and I love hearing your analytical base of like breaking it down and seeing other workouts that you like when they go to the games. You even talk about breaking it down, like how you would do it. It makes total sense. And yes, for everyone who's watching or listening, he doesn't talk about himself at all. He's extremely humble. He's a very, very, very fit athlete, right? This is not at all a joke. He's very fit. So don't. I
appreciate that. That might be an exaggeration, but I appreciate that.
Come on, dude. What was that? It was toes to bar, double unders, and then it was like starting with, so at the beginning, you told us you started CrossFit and you went to a gym and you're like, I can clean 135 pounds. I think it started at 135, then it went 185, then it went 225, then 275, 315.
Man.
Where did you get to?
I got deep into the 225s.
Okay.
Real deep.
Right. Yeah. And it's compounding too, because you're doing, I think it was like 100 double unders.
Yeah, it's like 50 double unders, 25 toes to bar, and then like I think it starts off with 15 cleans.
Yep. 15,
135,
10, 5, 5, I think it was.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, you're
I do okay. I do okay.
That's very physically impressive.
I do all right.
All right, man. Well, hey, check him out. We'll link everything in the bio. It was such an awesome time talking to you. I'm definitely gonna make this happen because Drew and I have been talking about going to this weight park with Justin Purser, who is another friend of ours. So we're in, man. So
please come by. I'm looking forward to it, guys. I've had so much fun, and as you can tell, I can talk forever. So yeah. I'm glad that at one point you just stopped me from talking for the next 6 hours. So
well, we that's the best thing is now we've got another reason to talk to when you get to like 100K or when we come down and visit, and like we'll be there. I want to learn about the set too. That's on the next.
I'm looking forward to it, guys. That sounds so much fun.
Thanks, Armen.
Hey, we appreciate your time. Appreciate the conversation. It was great.
Thank you. Likewise.